So I enjoy a good beer as much as anyone. I don't drink that much of it because I'm a type 2 diabetic, but I enjoy a beer every once in a while, especially in the summer when it's really hot. But Dan, you just told me something that blew my mind. That it's the beginning of August, and what is out already?
Oktoberfest. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I mean,
It's absurd. It really is. And I mean, I get the marketing behind it, but I'm over pumpkin beers. That was a trend, and there's still a few good ones, but I'm not running to the store for that anymore. But it's 80 something degrees out. I don't want to drink a heavy beer yet.
My war on pumpkin begins today. I didn't think it would begin today. It should begin middle of September, late September, but it's beginning today because Cheerios are hitting the market at the end of the month with pumpkin spice. Pumpkin spice is horrible. I don't know who likes it. Anthony probably likes it, but it's okay. In beer, though, we want our summer beers to last during the friggin' summer.
It's still summer.
Yeah,
okay.
I tried to tell Sam Adams that. I tried to tell Blue Moon that. Stop with the pumpkin beer, and especially if you're taking away another beer to add pumpkin, don't do it. It's way too early.
Well, okay, I railed about this because every September, first, second week of September, I go to the Leafs rookie tournament, the last area. I walk into a Starbucks on a Saturday morning, and it's wall-to-wall pumpkin spice coffee, all this crap, and I'm like, it's just past Labor Day, and you're doing the pumpkin spice. This is, and that's 2 months, or that's a little, because Halloween's at the end of October. So if you think about it, they're doing this, Anthony, 3 months ahead. It's ridiculous, this marketing. This is worse than Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I was okay with the pumpkin spice coffee. I kind of like it, but
I knew it.
Once it got to other areas, it just got way too much. It's just, and that's what happens. We take, in our society, we take the good things initially, and then we beat it to an absolute bloody pulp.
Right.
Or pumpkin pulp, whatever you want to call it.
It's still summer. It's still summer, and if you're out there listening right now, if you're out in Long Island, Blonde Ambition from Great South Brewery, great summer beer. If you're in the Northeast, Road Jam from Two Roads, great summer beer. If you're out in the West Coast, come Hell or High Watermelon from 21st Amendment, and Heavy Melon from New Belgium. Those are all great summer beers, and you should be drinking them for another 8 weeks.
Well, this is the thing and I have a couple friends who are like beer aficionados. They will go and try different types of beers.
Oh, Dan's not a beer aficionado. He just did a pretty good job.
Also, heads up, if you're in the South, you can get the cherry beer from NOLA Brewery. That's also really good.
There you go. But
I think he dissed you there, Dan. Anyhow.
That's okay.
I didn't. I was talking about two other people. Excuse me.
Oh, you have two other friends. I get it. All right, sorry.
Yes, I actually have a few friends. Thank you, Russ. But what I'm saying is, when the pumpkin beer craze kicked in, I went to a bar with them, and they were pumpkin beer on tap, and the bartender, like a margarita glass, you'd put in salt. They were putting cinnamon and sugar on the edge of the pumpkin beer. I'm like, where have we gone to? It's so out of hand. It's ridiculous.
No, there are two that I still like, but it needs to be October. Once October hits, I'll drink a couple of them. The Harpoon's Pumpkin Cider is really good, and it's only 90 calories, and it's 6.5% alcohol. So you're getting your money's worth. Let's put it that way. And Rosemary's Baby from Two Roads is a pumpkin beer, but it's barrel aged in a Bacardi rum barrel. So if you like rum and beer, that's really what it tastes like. With a little bit of pumpkin, and that's like 9% alcohol. So if you want to get your money's worth, but it has to be 60 degrees out. I can't drink dark beers in 85-degree weather.
Yeah, there's an Innocent Gun beer from England that they put it in casks of rum and casks of whiskey.
That's really good. I've had it.
It's really good. But I mean, you can have one or two of them and you're gone. So
yeah.
Make sure that you call the Uber right after the first beer.
People can join the War on Pumpkin with me on Twitter.
It all started with Starbucks. Starbucks is the first. They're the ones who's ruined it for everybody.
Hashtag War on Pumpkin. A lot of people are joining in, and let's get this rolling.
Russ that War on Pumpkin. Follow his lead, everybody.
Right, because there's no other problems in the country right now.
This is a problem, Dan. This is a big problem.
Hashtag War on Trump. But
no, War on Pumpkin. Hashtag blame Obama.
Yeah, And then on November 1st, you can do hashtag War on Eggnog, because at that point, that's when Starbucks changes over to the eggnog lattes.
That's really good, though. That's why if you go up in Canada, like, they have the maple latte, and it's just espresso, milk, and maple syrup, and it's amazing. I'm like, what can I have that? Because I could drink that any day of the week.
Does that come with a side of insulin? Yeah, so
just a little shot of. They just put a little shot of maple syrup in there. I don't know. There's something about it.
Let me get ready for that one.
Ring the bell. Let's go.
Okay. We don't. I don't have a bell, so I'll just make sure I mark the time here. Okay. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, August 3rd, 2016.
Hi, everybody. I'm Anthony Mangione. I write for Sunrise Philly Magazine and host the Off the Post podcast.
I am devoid of a fancy topic or name, but I'm Dan Petru.
I'm Russ Cullen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. I am in Buffalo, where I am frying right now. It's 90 degrees. I hate the summer. I'm waiting for September and hockey training camp and World Cup hockey, although we'll talk about that in a minute about ESPN. But I wanted to start off with rivalries because, right now there's very little hockey news, but and I watched some baseball last night. We're not going to talk about baseball, but I want to use this as sort of a lead into a hockey discussion. There was Russ and I were both watching the same game, and I didn't like the result of that game as opposed to.
That's not even a rivalry; it's a manufactured one.
Well, that's the point. But the thing is, in New York, there is that braggadocio, there is that bragging rights between Mets fans and Yankee fans, and of course,
there is. And it's not manufactured, Dan, because here's the thing.
You're right; it's an insecurity.
Yes,
that's what it is.
Yes,
the Big Brother does not care at all.
No, that's not true. You can't manufacture it. They definitely care. Otherwise, they wouldn't be playing this hard with the depleted lineup they have. Trust me, the Yankees want to win no matter who's in the lineup. I was at that first ever game in Yankee Stadium. That was a scary game to be at as a Met fan. That crowd was ridiculous, even worse than the World Series, even worse than a real Subway World Series. That crowd that day was a scary crowd. So it's not manufactured.
I will say the Mets did one thing right before we don't want to talk baseball, but the Mets did one thing right when they put the home plate, number 31 of Mike Piazza, they put it in the outfield. They put it right in the outfield where Bernie Williams caught the ball to win the World Series in 2000. It's perfect.
Did they put an area with a broken bat around the first baseline where Roger Clemens threw at Piazza?
God, baseball was so much better back then.
Just enjoy the tough years there, Yankee fans. That's fine.
Well, don't worry.
2 years until they have Machado and Harper.
Right.
Write it down.
Exactly. We have 27 World Series under our pillow, Russ.
Yeah, I'm an Islanders fan. I'm fine with rebuilds.
But okay, getting to rivalries in terms of a hockey sense. I mean, I look at the Yankees and the Mets, and I think I agree with what Russ said. At the very beginning, it was heated. It was scary to be in the stands. There was consequence to it, even though they were just regular season games or interleague games. There was bragging rights. You could hear it on the radio. You could probably hear it walking the streets of Queens and the Bronx. Now, I don't think it means as much. And if you look at, and there are some rivalries, and I'll talk about one right off the bat. And this was a victim of the move around of the Eastern and Western Conference. Detroit and Colorado was a big rivalry. I mean, hated rivalry. And now because Detroit moved to the East, now it's nothing. Now it's 2 games a year, and there's no attachment to the Patrick Waugh, Chris Osgood fight or Claude Lemieux rubbing Chris Draper's face into the boards. That's gone. I mean, Anthony, you mentioned one when we were texting back and forth that you think is one that sort of lost its luster.
Flyers Devils from the late 90s into the 2000s as well. It's probably, part of it is both teams as of late are not in the upper echelon of the league or competing potentially. I mean, obviously it reached its apex in the Lindros, Scott Stevens era, where it was basically a blood feud between both teams. That was and that's a rivalry to me that within recent years has fallen off. Philly and Pittsburgh obviously still remains pretty hot. I think Philly and New York does, but the Devils and the Flyers, not quite the same vim and vigor that it used to have.
Yeah, I mean, there are ones that have stood the test of time. I mean, Boston-Montreal still is a hated rivalry. But is there a rivalry with the Islanders are involved in that you think is sort of like dissipated a bit?
I think actually Flyers Islanders has lost some luster. I mean, for a long time there was some Death Wish hockey being played there. I still think Penguins Islanders has a good buzz. I think Capitals Islanders, two teams that really don't like each other, and obviously the Rangers but you also know Devils Islanders. There's really no. It's kind of like they share, the fan base shares a mutual disdain for the Rangers, but there's no hatred between the teams. But one I thought that's lost its luster that was really good in the 70s and the 80s is the Sabres and the Bruins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It picked up a little bit when Lucic ran over Ryan Miller. I mean,
it did, but then no one on the Sabres did anything about it.
Right. I mean, Paul Goss did the "oh, by the way, I have to fight the next game." But yeah, I mean, well, see, that's the thing. It's like I think some of these rivalries also fall victim to the fact that one or both of the teams are lousy. Like, I mean, right. Obviously, there's a traditional a century-long rivalry between the Leafs and the Canadiens, and they normally open up the regular season in Montreal or in Toronto. But it's sort of like it's a historical rivalry, but it's not really a heated rivalry because they haven't faced each other in the playoffs since 1979, and the Leafs have been lousy off and on for the last 25, 40, 45 years. So it's tough.
I mean, Islanders-Rangers still holds it, although I will say that when I first started covering Islanders-Rangers, because I'd been going to it for years, but when I first started covering it, there were still fights in the stands. Yeah. There's really no longer fights in the stands. So
yeah, because it's all suits. Yeah. It's all suits in the stands.
But it does sort of take away from a little bit of it because it was more heated. It's still pretty heated. Flyers-Rangers was extremely heated as a kid. It's still pretty hot, but it's not as hot as it used to be. I'll tell you one that's completely fallen off for the Rangers is Rangers-Bruins, even though the NHL would like to market it like there's still something there.
Yes, rivalry night. Rivalry night, yes.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
Yeah, and a rivalry that actually never has been, and it should be, is Buffalo-Toronto. And it's very strange because, I mean, they're less than 100 miles apart. Buffalo has this massive inferiority complex when it comes to Toronto. The Sabres were born from the Maple Leafs because Punch and Black got fired in Toronto, came to Buffalo, built the Sabres, worked up the Sabres to a lather to beat the Leafs. And there's always been that rivalry. It's a one-sided rivalry. It's Buffalo hating Toronto and wanting to beat the big team from the big city. But Toronto never has been invested in it. I think, Anthony, this will pick up now with Babcock spurning the Sabres to go to the Leafs, and now the Eichel Matthews thing, and get your tape ready, Dan. If Jimmy Vesey signs with Toronto after Buffalo traded for him, I think that will make the rivalry very heated.
Yeah, I think that could help it. I think the interesting thing is I don't know why there was never a good Leafs-Rangers rivalry because Conn Smythe also got dissed by the Leafs, right, and went over to the Rangers and tried to do the same thing with them, and it never really got that heated. There is one cool thing, though. I should post it on the show one day. The New York Times wrote about it. Conn Smythe actually went to like a hockey writers' luncheon and just laid into the press about the Leafs. It's fantastic, and it's just I should print. It's from like I want to say, would it be from the 20s, Mike? I guess that would be from.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and it's good press coverage. It's not that big an article, but maybe I should transcribe it. It's really a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories about Conn Smythe. I mean, basically he bet a lot of money on a horse race that he won, and then used the money to get King Clancy from Ottawa. So it's like there's always these very colorful stories about Conn Smythe. But anyway, the news came out this morning regarding the television schedule for the World Cup. Now, we discussed it yesterday because the only thing that had come out at that point was the pre-tournament schedule. And, I mean, there's no reason to really be that upset about it, but it was sort of a signal of what was coming because the pre-tournament schedule, most of the games were going to be broadcast online. I think there were only 3 or 4 games that were going to be broadcast on either ESPN, ESPN2, or ESPNU. All of them were being broadcast on ESPN3, which is exclusively online. Well, the schedule, it's not exclusively online?
No, if you have any, you can watch it from your phone, you can watch it from your Roku, you can watch it from your Apple TV, you can watch it from Google, any of those things. It's just, that's their streaming app.
Okay, their streaming app.
Fans excluded, but has anybody here watched ESPN3? I never have.
I never
have. Well, yeah, because they show college hockey games on there sometimes, Quinnipiac's on there sometimes.
Anthony, have you ever watched ESPN3?
Say again, Russ? I couldn't hear you.
Okay, ESPN3, have you ever watched?
I have not watched, no.
Yeah, and I watch a lot of sports. I've never watched.
Now, the schedule for the actual tournament and the semifinal and the final came out today. And of the 17 possible games, 9 of the 17 will be on ESPN2. 7 will be on ESPN, the main channel, and 1 will be on ESPN News.
Yeah.
And of those 7 games that are going to be broadcast on ESPN, one is a primetime game, an 8 p.m. start. Every other one is 3 p.m., 1 p.m. And
isn't there a Sunday up against the NFL? I mean,
one of the semifinal games is a Sunday 1 p.m. game in September.
Why would they do that? What is the league doing? They're so stupid.
I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, okay. I mean, I know that there is a drop off in terms of televisions that ESPN2 is on.
It's 2 million. It's 2 million viewers. It's not as much as you would think.
Right.
It's like 88 and 86 million. There's really no difference.
Right. it's significant, but not a deal killer. But the fact that you have 17 games and not even half of them are on ESPN, and most of these games are during the week, so you can't say it's a conflict with the NFL. Maybe it's a conflict with Major League Baseball, and that should have been
No, they only have 2 games a week.
No, it's not. We talked about the schedule yesterday. There's no conflict. It's just they don't deem it important enough. That's really what it's
exactly what it is. Right.
Then that's the thing I don't understand, Dan. I mean, you being in television, the NHL, if they're going to make a deal like this, if they're going to make a deal to get more exposure, as opposed to putting this entire thing on NBCSN, then you have to demand that it's going to be on the main channel.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, look, you look at some of the soccer tournaments. They've put them on, Fox has put them on Fox Sports 1. NBC has put a lot of their stuff on NBC Sports. What they're also trying to do is pad their ratings on these other networks. So normally ESPN2 would not be getting a 5 or 6 million viewer at that time spot. By putting it on ESPN2, you're doing that, and then you can sell more advertising based on those viewers. So you're kind of padding your ratings by doing that. But if I'm the league, I'm like, look, I want this to be treated number one. I want this to take priority. And if you're going to ESPN, hockey's never going to take priority. It's the NFL, it's the NBA, and it's college football. So that's why the NHL probably should have went
wrestling, and it's like you should have seen the list.
No, it's ESPN is a borderline NFL network. It's NFL all the time, and then NBA. But because they care about what they have, they're all their money invested into. So this is why the NHL probably should have went to NBC. Here's another thing too: is the NHL. I'm going to say something that'll probably get me in trouble, but the NHL does not care about its own network. If you look at Major League Baseball, they care about their network, they drive their network, and they move their network. When you put on NHL Network right now, you're looking at games from last year. Why aren't you putting some games on your NHL Network? Why aren't you doing that and pushing your network and making it the flagship of your sport? They don't care. They only care about their rights holders.
And the NFL Network did that. So, I mean, they had to drive. I mean, you could have some complaints about what the NFL Network did because they had Bryant Gumbel doing the broadcasting for a while.
Oh, yeah, that was bad.
It was a substandard broadcasting crew. But now they've even straightened that out. Now they have decent broadcasters doing the
There's
game.
no reason you can't have Steve Mears calling games with the analysts. I mean, they could have done more. I get they want some exposure. I get that they want to branch out and see how they dip their feet back into ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'll be fine. Because, like I said, there's really no difference between ESPN and ESPN2 as there was in the 90s.
That I'll give to the NHL is they are showing World Junior Evaluation Camp now, which are some games that at least you could watch some good prospects. It's some summer watching. They are filling with that. That's something that they've never done before. So I do give them credit for that.
Now, Anthony, I mean, what do you think of this? Because honestly, I think that ESPN is giving the NHL and this tournament. Of course, I'm going to watch I'm interested. But I think the league is looking at this to get new eyes to watch hockey, and I don't think it's going to be possible or not as possible with these games being on ESPN3, ESPNU News, and ESPN2 more than they are on ESPN.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the way this reads, and this is just me not being a television guy like Dan is, obviously, but in my view here, it's that the sorry, excuse me, that this is as much the league sort of saying we're also tipping our toe back in the NHL water as well, and they're not exactly ready to do a full-on commitment, or at least get to the, I shouldn't say a full-on commitment, but get to that next stage. They want to see what the reaction is to that being on the center, because they know hockey fans are going to go and find it. They want to find it, they will find it. But that's how I look at it from ESPN's perspective. They say you guys want to be back in with us. We're sort of allowing you back in to a degree, and we're going to see how it goes.
So let's just guess here. Who's going to call this primetime game? Are they going to?
Well, I have
Steve Levy.
I have that info. Steve Levy and Barry Melrose will call all USA games, and the game that is the primetime game that ESPN is carrying is Canada-US. So it'll be Steve Levy and Barry Melrose. The other games will be John Buccigross and Kevin Weeks.
And that's what should be the main. That should really, John Buccigross should be doing the main games. No offense to Levy and Melrose.
But the thing is,
no offense to either of them, but they're not play-by-play guys. Bring back Gary Thorne.
Well,
go get some. There's plenty. There are plenty. Dave O'Brien. There are guys who work for ESPN that have called hockey games. These guys are studio guys. They're not play-by-play guys. Russ, you saw Melrose and Buccigross try and do college hockey, and that was an unmitigated disaster.
Buccigross was okay. Melrose he can't do college. Look, the reason Melrose can't do college because you can't study up on college hockey for 10 minutes before a broadcast.
Well, first of all, ESPN is affiliated with TSN in Canada, so why not get Chris Cuthbert, or why not get one of their announcers?
Right.
Yeah.
You could. They've never done that. They should do that.
They want to go with the, in this case, with those primetime games. They want to go with faces that are familiar to the audience, and
they also want to go with guys who are under contract and they're cheap and they're sitting in the building. That's what it boils down to. Because they're not actually in Toronto. They're going to be calling the games from Bristol.
Oh, they're going to do that too?
Wow.
They're going to do it from Bristol. Now, I'm not. Right. I can't say I'm surprised. Then I can't say I'm surprised at all.
They also, to be fair though, to be fair, ESPN for the for the European tournament, they did all the broadcasts from.
No, but that's fine. Like for the KHL,
it's a cost saving measure.
For the KHL, they did the same thing, but that's in Russia. This is Toronto. You can't send guys to Toronto? Seriously?
Right, and you know what? Honestly, if you're going to do that, then why not just pick up the feed from Sportsnet and have them use their broadcast? Because having Steve Levy sit in Bristol with Barry Melrose.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if Levy. I don't know if all of them. I know some of the games will be done from Bristol. I don't know. I can't say all of them will.
Okay.
So let's hope that they at least have one crew out there. Let's hope that.
Is there going to be somebody in the background to sort of make that stick-on-stick noise like they used to for baseball, so it sounds realistic? Are they going to at least do that?
Like on those old radio broadcasts when they.
Yeah, but if I didn't tell you that, if I didn't pull over the green, curtain, you would never know. No, because you would have never known that Euros were done from there. You wouldn't have.
I knew the KHL was done from there, and I could tell. Like you could. You can.
Well, you guys watched the World Juniors last year, right?
Yeah.
Could you tell that was done from New Jersey and not from wherever it was? Finland?
I knew they weren't there. I didn't know where they were doing it from, but only because I knew that. So that's not there.
Not the TSN broadcast because.
No, the NHL Network broadcast. The NHL Network broadcast. Mears and Radek, or Mears and whoever it was Strome. They were in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Okay. There are a number of free agent situations, and we're now, about 6 weeks away from training camp. A lot of them are going to get resolved. There's a lot of unrestricted free agents still out there, fairly prominent names. Before we go into the list of 10 that I put together, one that came up based on a report from Gary Lawless from TSN was obviously Jacob Trouba is still unsigned with the Winnipeg Jets, and the comments made by Lawless about what Trouba is looking for not only money-wise, but more responsibility is sort of curious. He's saying Trouba doesn't want to play in the bottom pairing anymore. He wants to play with Bufflin or one of the other top 4 defensemen. He wants power play time. He wants to be a big part of what's going on with the team. There's a lot of demands going on here, and I mean he's a very good young defenseman. But I don't think this is the type of thing that should be getting out. I mean, you would think that he, as that type of player, coming off his entry-level deal, demanding big money, that it would be assumed that he wants more responsibility, but not being announced out there, I demand to be on the power play, I demand this, I demand that. Russ, I don't like that.
Well, I mean, players want what they want. I mean, it's not a demand, but it's, hey, if I could tied up with you for the next 5 or 6 years, this is what I would like. No, a player can't coach and they can't dictate everything, but I don't think there's anything wrong with a player voicing what they think they can do for your team. I think that's a positive. I think it could be turned into a negative if it gets out in the press and then everybody says, "Oh, look, he's demanding this."
Yes. Right. And
you also wonder the sourcing on where Gary Laws is getting his information from. Is this right. This is a Jets-based source? That obviously maybe that could potentially play against Trouba in this circumstance.
Right, and from what Lawless said, the two sides are fairly far apart on money, term, and also the usage thing that we just talked about. So let's take.
Just sign a 2-year bridge deal. Just sign a 2-year, $4.5 million bridge deal.
But Dan, see that's the thing.
He's not a $6.5 million defenseman.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if he is signed for that, then all those usage things that he's asking for, he'll get them because they're not going to put a $6.5 million defenseman on a bottom pairing. So maybe the whole quandary here is they want to sign him to the bridge deal, and with the bridge deal, they may put him in the top 4, but then he's underpaid. He wants to make that big money, and I think he thinks that they want to put him in the top 4 and give him a lot of responsibility. So there's a negotiation and there's a balance here.
And I'm also sure here in this case that with a lot of young defensemen in the NHL, that they're trying to maybe get rid of the idea of the bridge deal, of getting the entry-level deal and then getting the big money deal as quickly as possible in this case. So that's another thing I think that plays into it because, again, the bridge deal works well for the team. It's a mutually beneficial thing in most cases, but if you're a confident, headstrong young defenseman like a Jacob Trouba, along with potentially others, potentially down the line, maybe Ivan Provorov does the same thing with Philadelphia once he gets up, that these good young defensemen don't want to do the bridge deal. And
honestly, Anthony, since that PK Subban bridge deal, I think teams are saying, better safe than sorry, let's get them locked up, especially defensemen, because the price for defensemen are fairly ridiculous. But let's take Trouba as the first one here. We're doing a little contest here. Give me the term and the AAV that you think that these free agents will end up signing for. I will write it down. We'll when they finally do, we'll match and see who won the contest. But let's take Trouba. Anthony, what do you think eventually he will sign for, and for how much average annual value?
I do think the bridge deal is probably still going to happen in this circumstance. They're going to push it. I'm going to say 3 years. He's not going to get $6 million. That's far too high. It's going to be far too high. But I could see him pushing into
the Don Vino round table.
4.5 to 5 mil range, probably.
Okay.
Let's say 4.75. Let's cut it off there and say 4.75 AAV.
Dan, go ahead.
I'm thinking 4 years, $20 million.
Okay, that carries him right to UFA. But not buying no UFA years, so that would carry him right to unrestricted free agency at I think 25 or 26 years old.
That's fine. I stand by that.
Okay, Russ.
I'll go 2 years, $10 million.
I like that. See, I like that deal.
Yeah, I think it'll be 3 years, $12 million. I think they'll want to get him 1 year short of UFA, and then if he improves to where they think he is, then I think they'll give him the big money. But I think right now it's a point of pride for Cheveldayoff. I don't think he wants to succumb and give him the 7-year, $6 million a year deal. I think right now that's the compromise. They still have some control over him.
Yeah, but here's the thing: what's succumbing? Here, you're talking about
They all want the long-term deal, Russ.
Okay, well then you know what? What is going to be what are they looking at down the road, Winnipeg, defensively? You've got Bufflin, Trouba's your next best guy. In 3 years, if you don't have Trouba, then you better hope that Morrissey and a few of the others really do turn into something where they don't have a lot.
I mean, Tyler Myers is not old. Tyler
Myers is another one. Sure, he'll be there. But you're talking about having 3 solid guys instead of 4 or 5. I mean, that's what's going to end up happening if they don't pay these guys. And
they moved. And don't forget, they made the trade with Philadelphia to move up to take Logan Stanley. So that's another guy you can include in the system as well.
But I mean, I honestly, and I could be very wrong, so we'll see 3 years down the line. I think Logan Stanley projects as a bottom pairing guy, maybe a 4 at the most, because I don't know how much. Yeah, I don't know how much offense he has, and he's big, he's rangy, he's a good,
Yeah, I agree on that. I agree on those points. I'm just saying, just in terms of system depth and defenseman in the system, if he projects as an AHLer, I would agree with that.
I'm just saying you have to be careful, because if you don't have at least 3 to 4 solid defensemen, you're not getting to the Stanley Cup.
I mean, with Tyler Myers, Trouba, and Bufflin isn't exactly the steel curtain of defense. They picked second overall last year, and they had those guys.
Right.
Second on the list is veteran winger Yuri Hudler. Scored over 30 goals 2 years ago. Did not have as good of a year last year. Got traded from Calgary to Florida. He's 32 years old. He made $4 million on a 4-year deal. He's still out there as a UFA. I would think a veteran like this is probably going to get a 1-year or most a 2-year deal. Dan, what do you think he'll make on a 1-year or 2-year deal?
1 year, $2 million.
Okay. Russ?
I'm going to go 1 year, 2.5.
Okay. Anthony?
I'm going to say 1 year, $2 million sounds about right, yeah. Or a little, maybe potentially a little under that, but I think 2.
Yeah, I mean, well, if this was the Price is Right, I'd go 1 year, 2.501. But I'll actually go the lower end of the spectrum. I'll say 1 year. I'll say 1 year, 1.5. I think if he keeps waiting out there, he's going to price himself out. Because
and I'll tell you the difference too. Not only would Mike price him low like that, but he would ban his dogs from the rink too. He would.
Okay, I don't know what that means.
He brings his dogs to the rink every day that he practices. You didn't know about that?
Inside information.
PMI, thank you very much. Okay, defenseman Hampus Lindholm, 22 years old, coming off his entry-level deal. Another one like Trouba. Quality defenseman. I think the aim here on Lindholm is to get the long-term deal, like Trouba. Russ, you first. Do you think it's going to be bridge? Do you think it's going to be long-term? And
I think it's going to go 6 years, $27.5 million.
So under $5 million per. So you think he's going to get the same deal as Bettman got?
Yep. Because at some point they'll trade one of them, and they'll figure it out. But that's a tradable contract.
Well, and Anthony, the thing is, you look at Anaheim. There's been a lot of Cam Fowler talk out there. Lindholm is still unsigned. You've got Theodore, you've got Manson, you got a lot of these Simone Dupre. They got a lot of defensemen in that system.
Brandon Montour, actually.
Brandon Montour, there's another one. So I mean,
Shea Theodore, we mention him.
You mentioned him, yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, do you think? Okay, what do you think on Lindholm? What do you think they get him for?
Again, I think he's going to be a core defenseman for them, as we all would agree with at this point. I'm going to go we're going to go 525. So we're going to say $5 million with a $5 million AAV.
Okay, Dan.
I got 6 years at $28.5 million, which is $4.75 a year.
Okay, I'm going to go 6 years, $30 million. I think he'll get the exact same deal that Morgan Riley got from Toronto.
Dan,
I think he gets a little.
Well, hold on, Dan. Did you use a calculator for that?
Totally did. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I did. Yeah. I just think he gets a little bit less than Vatanen because I don't think he has the offensive upside that Vatanen has.
Okay.
I think that's fair.
Okay, the man who's been dubbed the Cody Franzen of the 2016 class, Chris Russell, former defenseman of the Calgary Flames, then traded to the Dallas Stars at the trade deadline. 30 years old, he made $2.6 million last year. There was a lot of talk he was going to get signed right around July 1st, but didn't. Now it's August the 3rd. Anthony, what do you think? What do you think he's going to go for?
Well, he's at 2.6. This point is the longer we go here. Obviously, I think the less he's going to be garnering. But I do think I'm looking at a 2-year deal for him probably in this case. I actually think he may go back to the Stars in this case. We're going to say 2 years with a modest. We'll give him about $1 million. We'll give him just under $1 million raise. We'll say 3.5.
Okay, that's exactly the same deal that Franzen got from Buffalo. Dan.
Okay.
I was actually thinking the same thing. 2 years, $7 million, which 3.5. Yeah, that's exactly what I had in my head.
Russ?
I think with the league change, I think he's getting like Justin Falk money, and that's the FALK, like 1 year, 1.5.
Wow. I think because he's a shot blocker and more of a two-way guy and less offensive than Franzen was, because Franzen was a power.
Franzen had offense. He does not have offense anymore.
But I actually think right now Russell has more mobility than Franzen. Franzen's mobility dropped off big time. I'll go 2 years, $6 million, so $3 million per. I think he can get that, and the team that gets him, they insure themselves against the drop-off, which most shot-blocking defensemen have when they turn 32 or 33. Okay, I put these two guys together because they're on the same team. They're both coming off entry level, both RFA, and both core players for their particular team. And that's Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan with Calgary. Gaudreau's 22, Monahan's 21. Gaudreau's played 2 years, scored 30 goals once. Monahan's played 3 years, has scored over 30 goals once. Top 2 in scoring last year for the Flames. I think the organization wants to lock them up long term, as long as possible, because I think they've proven themselves on their entry level deals. Dan, you first. What do you think both of them go for? I think they're going to go for the same amount because they're very similar, and they're not similar type players, but they're contributing similarly. What do you think?
7 years, $49 million for each.
$7 million per. Okay. Russ.
I'm going to go 7 years, $6 million for each, but I think they have to sign Monahan first. So I think he's going to end up being a little more costly because he does have the size and is scoring pretty similar points. And so I think he's more of the rush, and then I think they'll get Gaudreau right after Monahan.
But do you think that they're going to sign?
I think it's going to be mostly the same, although maybe Monahan they'll offer the 8 years too. It's possible because
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Anthony, you think it'll be different because Monahan's the big center, the big number one?
Yeah, I think in this case he's got to be. I wouldn't be too surprised if this is their version of the Taves Kane deals, which Chicago happening at the same time for the same number. But I do think I do agree with Russ in that Monahan has to have a slight priority in this case. I think they both could potentially in this case go 8, and again in an upward realm of about 6.5, somewhere a little above 6.5 probably for both, as they'll probably be possibly around that number.
I think they probably weren't happy with the number that Nathan MacKinnon signed for, because MacKinnon signed a 6-year deal at $6.3 million, and I thought he was going to get the max deal for more than that. And
you know what though? I think those guys are better players than MacKinnon is right now. I mean, I think MacKinnon has a higher ceiling. No, I think. Wait.
Go ahead.
I think MacKinnon has a higher ceiling.
Yes.
I do. But right now, through their careers, the guys in the Flames have shown to be a little more durable, and they've shown to be a little more consistent.
Yeah, I mean, I think MacKinnon had an okay second year, but he had a brilliant first year and a pretty good.
He did, yeah. He wasn't great in his second year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Calgary is going to battle for that type of contract, 6 years, $6.3 million, to try to get them on that, a little shorter term, a little less money. But I think in the end they'll maybe compromise and go 7 years and $6.5 million per. So I think that's where they'll go with both of them. Here's an interesting one because this guy scored over 20 goals 2 seasons ago, and then got injured and moved around. And then I'm talking about Brandon Peary, who was with the Panthers, got traded to the Ducks at the deadline. I don't know if he played a game for them, or if he did, he didn't play a lot. And then he was an RFA, and they did not qualify him. So 24 years old. Russ, you first. What do you think Brandon Peary gets on a deal?
1 year, $1 million. I think they look at teams are looking at him like he's had success under Dale Talon. He hasn't really had success anywhere else. He's a smaller guy. I think he's just going to be an added piece for somebody, but I think he's priced himself out.
Anthony?
I think he potentially is looking at PTOville to start off with. It may be it may be real short. He shows a little something. Similar deal in this case to Russ, maybe 1 to 1.5 on a 1 year deal.
Dan?
I was told by someone in the Panthers organization is they felt that Pierre could not play in his own zone at all. He was an absolute defensive liability, and that was the reason he was moved. I'm going to go 1 year, $875,000.
Wow. I was good. Similarly, 1 year, $1 million. He'll get a second chance like Cody Hodgson got last year. If the defensive situation is the problem, I mean, this league you have to be able to play in both zones unless you're a absolutely brilliant scorer, and he's a good scorer, but he's not brilliant, so that'll mitigate his value. The other big young defenseman coming off his entry-level deal, Rasmus Ristolainen of the Buffalo Sabres. 21 years old, scored a career-high 41 points in his third season. He's the #1 defenseman. He eats minutes. Anthony, you first. What do you think he gets?
He's a core guy to their blue line. In terms of offensive numbers and everything else, I think they're probably going to look to lock him up 7-8 years, obviously, in this case. He's a core guy. Number figure, I'm figuring, based on what he's capable of doing, but they still have time to go here, could be in that little above a $5 million, potentially $5 million range for him because he's their guy. He has to be their guy in this case. Maybe a little north of that.
Russ?
I'm sorry, I was texting. Who are we talking?
Ristolainen, Buffalo.
Okay. Yeah, Ristolainen, I would give him the 8 years. I would give him 8 years at, I'd probably try and get him at around $50 million.
Okay.
It might just be a little north of that, but that's what I would try and do.
How old is he, Mike?
21.
Okay, so usually if you go into a little in the free agency, obviously you got to pay a little bit. I was thinking 8 years, $48 million, which was right at six a year.
Yeah. See, I think, again, you look at comparables, I think the Sabres didn't like that the Ekblad contract came out. Not to say that he's Ekblad.
No, and he's not.
But I think he's
important to the state, but he's got that level of importance, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
If you look in their system,
Yeah, that's a good point, Russ.
It's him, it's Jake McCabe, and who else? There's
tumbleweeds.
And you have Kulikov, but he's a 1 year fix. So, and they've got some veteran guys. I think Ristolainen gets 8 year max, $56 million, $7 million per. That's not as much as Ekblad because I think Ekblad got 7.5. But I think, they're gonna. This is the reason why the Sabres, all this talk about them being involved in the Stamkos thing was a little strange because they've got to pay Reinhart, Eichel, and Ristolainen big money over the next 2 to 3 years, and it made no sense to go out and spend $11 to $12 million on Stamkos if they're going to have to spend $7 million on Ristolainen and $8 million on Eichel. So that's why I always didn't think it added up. But
here's the other guys they have. They have Bryson Martin, who's a few years away, and then I like Casey Fitzgerald and Will Borgen are definitely years away. So they have to bridge the gap badly.
Right. They don't have. Yeah, you're right. They have some guys in their organization, but they're not close.
Okay. Here's a guy that we will specify it's going to be a 1 year deal because of his advanced age, but he has not been signed yet. Matt Cullen, 39 years old, scored 16 goals, won a Stanley Cup with the Penguins, was I think a big part of that team. He made $800,000 last year. He still is not signed. Anthony, you first. Do you think it's tryout? Do you think it's contract? And if it is contract, what is it? What amount?
You figure. You're going to look at those numbers, obviously, and think playing in Pittsburgh's system, 16 goals is probably the absolute max of what you're going to get offensively out of Matt Cullen. That being said, for a team that's potentially in contention, I think you may be right about PTO in this case, or it could be one of those contracts that happens right before training camp happens where a player comes in on a contending team and the team's just thin on center depth and decide they want his experience. think 1 year, if he doesn't get PTO'd, 1 year around $1 million.
Dan?
You actually might need camp to start first. There might need to be an injury in somebody's camp before he gets a look. I think he will eventually latch onto a roster. I'm thinking about 1 year, 800,000 seems right.
Russ?
I think he'll get an invite to Penguins camp, and they'll sort of see where their roster shakes out. And I think that's probably what he'll want. Rutherford will lure him in again, and he'll gladly do it.
And if he does that, it's probably the same contract or maybe a $50,000 raise, so
Right.
800 or 850, something like that.
Yeah,
So,
he's made his money. He's really happy just playing hockey. That's the funny thing about it.
Right. Okay, here's one for you, Dan. Ryan Strome, 22 years old, coming off the entry-level deal, took a step back off a 50-point season, got sent to Bridgeport. There were a lot of rumors about him. Bridge deal, one-year deal, what do you think?
1 year deal, $900,000.
Wow, for a former 5th overall
Take
pick.
that out of the equation. You got to see what he is. You don't know what he is yet. Is he the guy from the first year? Is he the guy from the second year? Because if he's the guy from the second year, he's barely in the league. So you give him 1 year, tell him to go prove himself, and then we'll sign you to a nice bridge deal.
And if he doesn't, he gets traded to Arizona to play with his brother. Anthony.
Again, with his number being around he was 832,000 on his NHL salary last season.
Yeah, he was at entry level slid twice.
Right, entry level slide. Again, as Dan indicated, he did show regression. There's no question about that. They might, again, one of those cases where, again, I think I agree with Dan. A 1 year, let's see deal with him. Maybe it's 2, but then that gap, that hit goes under. So he may take the 1 year deal, 1 year prove it contract. If I'm giving a number, 800. 900,000 maybe, around that number. Yeah.
Are we talking one way here, or are we talking two?
Yeah, one way.
No, it'll be a one-way deal. It'll be a one-way.
He can't go. I don't think he could go back anyway with how many games in service and all that. So
Right, that's true.
because that's why they sent him down when they did, because he was getting to the limit of that.
Right, Russ.
I would give him 2 years, $3 million. I would definitely.
A year?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, 1.5 per, because
Okay.
I am not going to take the gamble that when he signs for 800 or 900 this year, he goes out and he rebounds and scores 25 goals. Now all of a sudden next year, I've got to pay him 3.5. I'm going to go somewhere in between and just give him some motivation with a raise and see what that gets me. It's not big money.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, too, is they took all his excuses away.
Right.
This is his. He is penciled in as the number 2 center. It's his job to keep. It's his job to succeed at, and he's probably, I was going to write about this later in the week, he might be the most important Islander this year because they need him to replace Franz Nielsen. Not all around, but they need 40 to 45 points and show that you're an NHL player, and they're giving him every opportunity to do so. They have taken away all his excuses.
Well, I think the SUV count as a team member or no?
He is the mascot.
Oh, he's a mascot. All right, then I
He's the
agree.
mascot, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Well,
Great mascot. How dare you, Russ?
I think this is CYA time for Garth Snow in the sense that I think he'll give him a 2-year deal. I think it'll be around what Russ is saying, say 1.25, 1.5. But if he doesn't work out, there's one of your guys that qualifies for the games played situation for expansion. I think then you expose him and maybe he goes to Vegas because I don't know. Everybody who they would have to protect, but if Strome doesn't do what
they have 4 defensemen they have to protect, so they're not going to have that many forwards available.
Right, they'll go 8 skaters, and they don't have to protect guys like Barzal or Del Cole.
No, but they will have to protect 1 or 2 of Lee, Strome, and Nelson.
Right. So, last one is 25-year-old defenseman Dmitry Orlov, Washington Capitals, coming off a 2-year bridge deal, made $2 million, had his best offensive season, 8 goals, 21 assists, and his role increased after Brooks Orpik went down with injury. And Orpik is 34 years old, so who knows whether he's ever going to be anything more than a bottom-pairing guy, or even
That's all he is.
That's all he is, and maybe all he will ever be.
He's good in the room. He's good in the room.
Yeah. So I don't think that Orlov is going to take the bridge deal again.
Nope.
Unless they offer him a lot more money. So Russ, you first. What do you think Orlov gets?
I think 3 years, $9 million. I think that's fair for him. I think he'd be happy with the term, and he does have more offense in his game, provided that he gets that opportunity.
Anthony?
I'm going to go maybe a little above Russ. I'm going to agree on the years, on 3 years, but I'm going to say maybe around $10 million on his contract.
Dan?
That's exactly what I was thinking too. 3 years, $10 million. And this is a guy you really saw step up last year. You really saw progress. And the more I watch him, the more he looks like a top 4 defenseman. And if you lock him up 4 years around that price, I think that's a bargain.
Yeah, I think
he's going to continue growing into that role. Every time he got more responsibility, he exceeded expectations.
I was thinking 3 years, $3.75 million, because
that's not bad either. Yeah,
they're buying 1 year of unrestricted free agency, I believe. So if they do that, they have to give him a little more. So I think, but I for what you all said, I mean, I think he can contribute more offensively. He's got the instincts. He's got the speed. I think he's got the offensive chops. And along with Alzner and Carlson and Niskanen, I mean, I think that I think that team needs another defenseman, because I think Orpik is basically a fire hydrant on the bottom pairing, but Orlov helps them, so I think they'll get him signed, and that would probably be a fair value for him. All right, just touching on a couple things before we end the show. Gabriel Landeskog wrote a piece on the Players Tribune regarding concussions. I read it. It was pretty interesting, talking about him having a concussion a few years back, and how, how he was extremely careful about, he had been told by other players, don't rush back, make sure you're patient, make sure you feel 100%. And I think it was more of a warning to other players out there, you're not being tough by coming back before you're ready to come back. Take the extra time and make sure you're 100% before you do, because the effects of concussions, if you have one right on top of the other, it could be debilitating to your career. Russ?
I think it's good. I read some of it. I'm not a big fan of the website, as you know, but I am a fan of Landeskog. I think what's interesting here is there's always an impact factor on young players having now to think about that. They didn't grow up thinking about it. They're hockey players. They go out there, they get a tooth knocked out, they go back in, they get cut, they get stitched up, they go back in. Like, this is a hard thing for hockey players to process. So I get why the article comes out, and I think it's good for him to also show young players, really young kids, because there's a CBC report now saying that, when they've cut back on body checking, they're getting less concussions, because as we remember, that side impact against the glass is the real killer, or if you hit your head back on the ice. Those are the two really bad ways of getting them. And so I think it's a good thing.
Anthony?
Yeah, I would concur, and the timing of the article is interesting, considering we're less than a week out from the letter from Gary Bettman to the Senator Blumenthal, and it's kind of a 1-2 punch for the league, because it didn't look good for Commissioner Bettman, and then you add, obviously, a player like Landeskog penning this article, or in this circumstance, with his name on it, talking about why players shouldn't rush back from concussions. It's kind of the timing of it is not, I don't think, coincidental at all. But again, I hadn't a chance to delve too deeply into the article, but the general crux of the point of what the article is, I certainly agree with.
Dan, the funny thing was, Bettman's comments were very careful, were very, I think, unrevealing, and the fact that there's still lawsuits going on between former players and the league, and I think that probably has a factor in it, don't you?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The timing of this is exactly like Anthony said. There's I just happened to write an article. No, this was very calculated. I think that's the right word. This was very specific and very calculated. But I also think it's good for the players, especially like Russ said, younger players, to see look, don't be an idiot here. These things are real. These things can ruin a career. You recover from broken bones. You recover from stick injuries or skate injuries if you get cut. But once you start getting head injuries, that's something you can't come back from. And you also want to have a normal life after you're done. I mean, ask Mark Savard, ask Pat LaFontaine, ask the guys whose careers were cut short because of it. It's like don't be stupid, don't be a hero. You're actually hurting the team if you come back early. And I think that's something that players need to know, because when you get hurt, like what we've done, we've all played sports competitively, you want to get back. You want to help your team. But if you come back too early and you're not helping your team and you're hurting yourself, I think it's good to see. I think this was a good article. I think players, especially younger players, need to hear this.
And finally, Dan, you brought to my attention, and I watched a bit of the video. PK Subban continues to make the Montreal Canadiens look bad, because the guy,
not intentionally. I don't think
just by being the type of guy that he is, and being what I retweeted the video and said class act, because he went to, I think it was Montreal Children's Hospital, and said, the fact that I'm now I'm a member of a different team, but that's not going to stop my support of the hospital. And he distributed a letter to a lot of the some of the patients. I mean, I just think he by his ability to communicate what he's doing, I think he makes the Canadiens look smaller for moving him for. We don't know all the reasons why, but I think it's I don't think it's calculated. I think he's just being who he is.
Right. No, I just think, the Canadiens had a chance here just to be honest. They could have just said, look, we're making a hockey decision. We think Shea Weber fits our style better. We love PK Subban, but we don't think he was the right fit for what he wanted to do. But to start this stuff about, oh, he's not good in the locker room, oh, he's a selfish player, it's absurd.
And he raised $179,000 for the event. Good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I honestly think that the deal had more to do with the fact that he had a no-move clause kick in on July 1st.
Yeah, that's I think so. Yeah, they could have said that too. Like, look, we did not want this commitment for 8 years. We decided we wanted to move on and go in a different direction.
I mean, Russ, you have breaking news?
I do. The Gary Lawless quote where it's on Twitter where it says they're apart on money and they're apart on usage, it's not accurate. That's what a source just told me. It's not accurate.
Okay. Well.
And that's what you have to be careful about, because it does make a player look bad when you even just put in 2 words like that, usage. Then all of a sudden you're thinking, well, this player's got demand. It leads you down that path.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what we talked about earlier, and right, Russ, we said, depending on where Gary has his source from, and again, we all get our sources from wherever in the circumstance, but it definitely had that whiff of something that would benefit the Jets, obviously more than it would benefit Trouba because of how it plays out.
An agenda was being floated. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay. Well, great job, guys. Anthony, thank you very much for coming on the last 2 days. We'll make sure to have you on in the future when we're shorthanded.
Call up.
For Anthony Mangione, for Dan Petru, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.